CM 365, all about Carnatic music. In one of the earlier episodes, we had talked about the Tana Varnam. But of course, no topic in music is exhaustible. So today, we will look into some more aspects of the Tana Varnam. Although this Tana Varnam has got Sahityam, we see that the musical flow is such that it does not highlight the Sahityam at any point of time. The Sahitya actually acts as punctuation points for the raga to blossom. The Varnam actually describes the raga by the raga in its own language, we could say, of swaras, gamakas and phrases. Now the Kriti actually may portray the ragam in a more exquisite manner sometimes, but they are much more codified, I would say, in the Varnam. And Varnam is thus the grammar of the ragam, in the sense that we have this Sahitya, but apart from that, we also have the Swara passages which bring out explicitly the Raga Lakshana, the Raga Bhava, and so on. And though it may be said to be codifying the grammar of the particular ragam, it is not just some kind of a theoretical piece. Rather, we would say that the Varnam is something so vibrant with color, movement, and life. Varnam is a ready-made toolkit for students and a very useful exercise, I would say, at various points of time in terms of the learning itself, where we see that while singing the Varnam, one gets to understand the Raga Lakshana, the perceptions of the ragam, that is, the Kala Pramana grip is also attained, then understanding of the Tala cycle, Gamakas, and also another very important point is the practice of Varnam helps much in terms of improving the voice tone. For instrumentalists, also playing the Varnam in different speeds helps them to develop dexterity. Varnam is actually more regimented than a Kriti, in the sense that Kriti has got a wide variety and different kinds of forms, whereas the Varnam is very, very structured. And if you look at and examine all the Aditala Varnams and the Adatala Varnams, we see that they have a particular format, and that format is adhered to by all the composers. And you see that the Pallavi will have 2 lines, Anupallavi 2 lines, followed by the Mukta Iswaram. And never would you see a disparity in terms of one composer composing 2 lines for a Pallavi and another 10 lines for a Pallavi and so on. The format is very, very structured and unanimously and uniformly followed by all composers. And another aspect here is that there is no scope for Manodharma, in the sense that the Manodharma is more about interpretation of the notes at different levels. That is, when you're singing it as a basic student, you may do it as a plain level, but as you keep becoming an advanced student of music, you understand the nuances and you may be able to sing the nuances more intricately. But you do not improvise in between like you do for a Kriti. So that way we see that the Varnam is much more rigid in its structure. Coming to the inner details of this particular composition, we see that opening swara is always the Jiva swara of the ragam. For example, Yauvari Ri Ga Ga Ri Sa, or Sami Ninne Shri Ragam, starting with Pa. Sami Ninne Ko Ri. And also generally we see that the Pallavi operates on the Madhyasthai and the Mandrasthai at some points of time. Of course, there are exceptions like the Kalyani Varnam, which starts on the Tarasthai Shadja. Now, in the Mandrasthai, why some Varnas start is because of the fact that some ragas blossom very well in the Mandrasthai. For example, if you take the Natagurji Varnam, Chala me la je se vai, where in the Mandrasthai it comes out very well. Now in some ragas you see that rather than the Arona, the Avrona Krama starting gives a more beautiful picture of the ragam. For example, if you take the Saranga Varnam, di, or another Sami Nine Kori in Sri Ragam, where you see that the descending order of the notes as the opening phrase gives a much more vivid and beautiful picture of the ragam. Now coming to the next point, The Jivaswara which opens the Pallavi is also the beginning of the Muktaiswara. I don't know how many of you will have noticed this aspect. So we'll just cite a few examples here. For example, if you take Ninnu Kori Ga, starting on Ga. That's Muktaiswaram also starts on Ga. Ga Gari Gari Sari Ga Ga. Or Vanajakshi. Vanajakshi. Starting on the Tarasa. So the Muktaiswaram also starts on Sari Ni Sani Dani. Or the Sri Raga Varnam. Sami Ni Ne. Starting on Pa. The Muktaiswaram also. Pa Pa Bari Ri Gari Ri. Starting on Panchama. Or if you take another example of Sarasuda. Sarasuda. Starting on Shadja. And the Muktaiswaram also. Sa Ri Gari Sa Ri Ri Gari Ri. Like this it goes. So you may look into many more Varnams to see how the Jivaswara which opens the Pallavi is also the beginning note for the Muktaiswaram. This is a standard rule which is followed by all composers. Now the next point is about the Mudra of the composer occurring in the text of the composition. We see that generally in the Pallavi, after the Pallavi, when the Anupallavi comes, there the Mudra of the composer is there. For example, you've seen Sarasuda, where Giri Ni Velayu Shival Katesha, a composition of Kottavasal Venkataramayar. Or Yavari Bodha, where Chalendra Shival Kateshwara, a composition of Patnam Subramaniya. Now, in the Navaraga Malika also see Cheluvudaina Shri Venkatesha, where you would have immediately the next question which must be coming to your mind is that Kottavasal Venkataramayya Iyer and also Patnam Subramaniya has used the same Mudra Venkatesha. So sometimes this also becomes misleading in the sense when two composers use the same Mudra, there is always a confusion of whose composition it is. But nevertheless, we see that when we talk about the Varnam, one more important aspect is that unlike the Kriti which has got the Pallavi and Anupallavi as distinct parts, here the Pallavi naturally flows into the Anupallavi followed by the Muktaswara. And thus we see that the Varnam is a very valuable piece as far as our music is concerned, both in terms of the learning phase and also as the opening piece in a concert.
CM 365, all about Carnatic music.